new rescue fish in the 3,000 gallon. Man, so much to talk about in this tank, but not tonight. Okay, I know the thumbnail is the Discus tank, but really, as much as this video is about the Discus tank, it's sort of about all of the tanks that were involved in the double DIY builds and the double DIY rebuilds. So for example, we know right now the 600 and the 750 freshwater DIY builds, you know, they're basically going through the evolution of getting established the tanks. We've been changing the lighting. We're starting to get plant growth. You know, we're doing a lot of testing of the water since it's a newer tank, just in less than the first 6 months, and we're making adjustments. But these other tanks, like the 125 Malawi River tank here, they you know, they got redone. They didn't rebuilt as well in a sense, you know, in terms of what's inside the aquarium. I mean, the filter system stayed the same, but you know, we added all new everything else. So they're going through that same process of getting established, and more importantly, getting in balance, an equilibrium within the aquarium. So we know with the 125, you know, we capped the old substrate, we had some die off, and then of course we had you know, a little bit of cyano and everything to go with that. We did a couple aggressive water changes, and that has subsided along with the fish picking and everything. And we look at the tank now, and we have a lot of new leaves growing on the plants with no algae on them. We have some of the old leaves with algae, and we look like we're essentially close to being in balance. So like the Malawi River Aquarium behind me, the 220 flooded forest, it went through the same situation, and it's gone through, so it went through the same situation in terms of getting overhauled, you know, new everything inside of it, capping the substrate, and while it didn't have any cyano like the 125 behind me, it did get some hair algae, and tonight's video we're going to go deal with that. So not only are we going to deal with the hair algae itself, you know, we'll talk about the mechanisms with the water change and everything like that, and physical removal of the algae, but we're also just going to change out the lights on that. So we're going to actually repurpose the lights from the 750 gallon Amazonian Islands build for the 220 flooded forest, because we're going to reuse those Kessel lights on some upcoming cube builds. And I think that those current Plant Plus lights are going to look really good on the 220, and they make a lot of sense for coverage considering how we have the plant set up. So let's go take a look at that. All right, we're back with the 220 gallon Amazon flooded forest build, or the Discus aquarium, sometimes referred to. And happy to say all the fish are doing great. The Discus are still pigs and growing well. All the other fish doing great. But not happy about what I called at the very beginning, sort of like the quaint, looks interesting hair algae that was growing on the wood. Well, that's pretty much expanding everywhere, and you know, it's not so quaint anymore. In fact, I don't like the way it looks at all. So we're going to fix that. So what are we going to do? So the first thing we're going to do is test, which I've already done the test. So the question is, what are the nitrates at? Nitrates are right around 20. Not too worried about that. That's actually pretty decent, 10 to 20 range. And then the phosphates came in at 1 part per million. So, and that was 20 parts per million for the nitrate. So 1 part per million for the phosphate. That's higher than what we want, and that's you know, more than likely that. And usually when you have phosphate as silicate, that's what's feeding that that hair algae up there. That you know, it's past its welcome. So it's time to get rid of it. So the testing's done, and we know what to do, and we also know why it happened too. If you look down here, this is the old 2 inches of substrate, and this is the new substrate I put on top of it. It's the same situation as the African cichlid tank. When you put a whole bunch of new substrate in a roll, you're going to have that die off. Well, in fact, let me show you on the African tank. So in a 125 gallon Malawi aquarium, same situation. We had the old substrate. In this case, it was eco-complete, and I want to go to sand, so I put it over top of it. And early on, we had the algae was covering everything. It was growing on the substrate and everything like that. We did the big water change, and that's just done wonders. That's pretty much all it took for the Malawi aquarium. We have a very good filtration system going on with a very large sump, a lot of denitrification going on down there. So it's pretty in check. It's not completely in check. There is all the new leaves are free of algae, but the old leaves, the algae broke up some, but it's not completely gone. And we have a little more on the rocks than we probably need. You know, obviously some of it is good for these herbivore African cichlids and the army of plecos we have in there. but we want to tame this down a little bit. But I want to show you just, you know, what a difference just bringing down the phosphate was from the big water change on this. And that's what we're going to do on the flooded forest build as well. At least that's where we're going to start, and then we'll check out the results. But before we do the water change on the 220, which is going to be about a 50% water change, we're going to go ahead and take off these tops and then cut them down, get them set into the different sections of the hood where they'll drop down inside these plastic rims instead of sitting on top. Because I'm going to change out the lights too. I'm going to reuse these Kessel lights over on a new build that's coming up, a new freshwater build, or a rebuild. The 150 reef cube is going freshwater after everything in there moves to the 600 reef slope. So I want to get those covers down, because I'm going to be adding the lights from the 750 gallon Amazonian Islands build to this tank. Because I have plants sprouted everywhere, I don't really want these dark spots that I'm getting with the beams from the Kessels. Unfortunately, the problem is my desk is just to the right over here. And if I raise these up really high, they kind of bother me. I can see the light sort of shining in my face, so, or like it just catches my eye all the time. So I want to not have that. So I'm going to switch the lights up. I think it would be better for this tank anyways. Illuminate it better. The fact that it has plants everywhere, so we have pretty much consistent lighting across the whole tank. But before I do that, when I'm doing the water change, I'm going to manually pull out all of this hair algae, which it does come off very easily, which is good, but I'm going to pull all of that out. Then I'm going to do a 50% water change, go ahead and switch the lights, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at the tank at that point, and then we'll let some time go by, and we'll see, we'll go ahead and retest our levels, our nitrate and phosphate levels, and we'll just see if we see that hair algae all die off, you know, beyond, because, you know, I'll be pulling out most of it, but you can't get it all. You'll still be able to see a little bit even after I pull it out. So we'll see if it dies off after that. And then, of course, if depending on what we see, if it looks like we've reduced the phosphate, we just do it again. They could do one more water change, or I could even use something like a phosphate remover, like a Phosban or something like that. But I expect this to be in the same situation as the Malawi 125 gallon Malawi aquarium. It's just that it just needs a water change or two to offset what I did by, you know, putting a whole bunch of new substrate over old substrate and the die-off that comes with that. It's pretty much to be expected. And of course, I'm still dosing the fertilizer for the plants, because, you know, we have lots of plants in here. So even though we're getting, you know, we're tearing down the algae, we want to starve that out. We don't want to starve out our plants. We want to keep them. We want to keep our plants upticking the nitrate and everything that's naturally going to be occurring in this aquarium, and the minimal level phosphate that you'll get just from fish food, and the little bit of breakdown there that, you know, instead of the massive phosphate you get when you completely cover up an old substrate. So let me go ahead and jump into that, and then we'll take a look at some of the results. Okay, so I ended up doing a 50% water change. As you can see, probably about 10% is filled back up. The fish are just enjoying the warm fresh water coming back in. Discus are always inquisitive. They like to get right into the mix, you know, bite my hand while I'm pulling off the hair algae, swim into the water, you know, as it's coming into filling up the tank. You know, they're fun fish. They're definitely, you know, very, you know, they're cichlids, right? And they act like cichlids. They're very inquisitive and interactive, and that and their beautiful colors, I'm sure, is what makes them so popular. But let's see, so where are we at here? Picked off most of the hair algae. As you can see, there's a little bit left in there, and that's fine. It's not a matter of picking every last little bit or it'll grow back. It's a matter of making the water parameters correct, which will prohibit its growth, and it'll also cause what a little bit left in here to die off. So no big deal with having a little bit there. Just want to speed up the process, and that's why I go ahead and pull some off, just like with other tanks like the 3,000 gallon with the phosphate issue there. One of the key things is to get out all the debris and everything, because that just breaks down and works against everything you're doing to remove the phosphate. And what you're shooting for is to get the aquarium back in equilibrium, and then at that point, you know, it'll maintain itself more or less, as long as you don't overpower it with some giant source of food or something breaking down or decaying plant matter, which was the case in both of these cases with the 3,000 gallon and the 220 and the 125. Yeah, it was just decaying matter from doing the substrate stuff I did to the 220 or the 125 or the 3,000 gallon using the medicine to kill off the cyano. So no big deal. Once you get it back into equilibrium, you can keep it that way. So right now we're just going to fill it up, and I've cut the tops. I can't put the other one on yet, but once I get the 3 tops on there, it'll be time to remove the Kessels, because we have new plans for those on a couple cube tanks, and we'll put those current plant lights, Plant Pro Pluses, I think they are, that used to be on the 750. We'll put them on here. I think they'll do real good on the 220 because they are 5 feet long. This is a 6 foot tank, and it's not nearly as deep. Even though it is a deep tank, it's not as deep as the 750. And I think with 2 of them, it's gonna do the job exactly what we want here. That and we pretty much have an even spread of all these different grass plants, these Vallisnerias, Dorsage, everything. So they're all over the tank, and we don't want to have those zones like we kind of have right now with the Kessels. And like I said, if I put the Kessels high enough to get rid of the light zones, they're distracting to me sitting at my desk over the right-hand side of the tank. So we're going to go ahead and correct that. Okay, I'm going to let this fill back up and let the fish enjoy their waterfall, and yeah, then I'll get this front glass scraped and clean, and we'll take a look with the new lights on as well. Oh my gosh, I like seeing the Discus school. That is actually really, really cool. Okay, let's let this fill up. All right, what a difference. I am definitely liking the switch up on the lights here. So the Kessels are still up there, but they're turned off. We're all running off of the current lights now. So this is definitely a different color temperature dynamic than what we had going on with the Kessels, as well as the spread of the light is much better for having wall-to-wall grasses throughout this aquarium like we do. And I'm feeling it. This is definitely looking good to me. I have to see how this looks on video, but in person, this is really popping. Definitely, I think we're hitting the trick here with this swap out. Plus, you know, I need the other lights for something else, but I think this is an absolute win-win. I really feel like we're going to be growing, you know, our Vallisneria, Dorsage, and everything so much better with these lights, and we're going to cover all of them in all portions of the aquarium, none of those dark spots, as well as it's making the Discus pop, which is awesome because showing off the colors of the Discus is obviously a huge a huge factor for any light you choose for a Discus aquarium. But really, yeah, just this illumination is working a lot better for this aquarium, for the flooded forest here. So let's take a quick look. So not only did we did the big water change, we did a 50-60% water change, but we physically removed a lot of the hair algae that was in there, and retested. And just after the water change, after 24 hours, the phosphate level cut in half, almost pretty much where you'd expect it to be in an established aquarium, about a half a ppm. So we'll see how this goes. I mean, unfortunately, with an ecosystem aquarium, and when you're using techniques like water changes and plants and everything to control and denitrifying bacteria in your filtration media. So when you're using these types of things to control the aquarium, it takes a little time for changes to take effect, which is good. Nobody, including the fish, likes to have abrupt changes, so we give it a little time. But in terms of the initial results from the lighting change and from the water change, all is positive. So it's just about giving it a little time. You'll know in the next video if you see significant plant growth. So let's take a quick look at where the plants are today. If you see significant plant growth from what you see here, that'll be a key factor, as well as you won't see the hair algae. And you can tell that you can't really, I mean, you could tear apart the aquascape and get it all off, but you don't really get it all off just by using your fingers, which makes it easy to tell if it's actually burning off, from lack of nutrients and getting overpowered or overtaken by the plants. So it will be easy to tell in the future whether these changes have fully worked or not. But in terms of the short term, they're looking good. And yeah, I gotta feed these guys. They look like They always look like they're hungry, but actually I know they are because they haven't eaten yet today, so let's get them some food. So they actually missed one of their meals last night with me doing work on the tank, so we'll give them a big one tonight to make up for it. You know, we just had a 6% water change, so I'm sure we can handle it. But in all seriousness, we have our significant cleaning crew down there, so really not worried about any leftovers. Plus with these Discus, you never get it anyways. They're pigs, and them and everybody else are more than willing to eat off the substrate. And speaking of that, you can see that the substrate is in good shape, especially considering it was overplanted over a previous substrate. So you don't see any cyano or any slime algae or anything like that. So that's a good sign. And again, the significant cleaning crew with the Cory cats, they're not going to let any food go undetected. So they're in there. It's subtle, but those guys, they're everywhere. There's a large school of them, and you can see them working their way. They smell the food, working their way towards it. But again, these guys over here, they are more than up to the task of keeping their substrate clean. They're more than happy to pick at it themselves, both the rams and the Discus. Actually, I should have fed the fish more in the middle. It's like I got everybody crowded in the corner, and then you have the rest of the 220 gallon looking pretty sparse. But this is actually one thing I was really looking forward to, is the Cory cats having that canopy of plants to work underneath. I definitely like seeing those guys in there. Also, I'm noticing the Cory cats are using the caves a lot, which is very cool, and I'm sure the plecos are, because there's like a dozen plecos in here, but good luck ever seeing one. But hey, it makes me feel good knowing that they have a habitat that I know they really like. So even though I don't get to enjoy them hardly ever, maybe I just need to add a dozen more. Who knows? I'll have to see. Again, the balance. You can't have too many, but probably could support more than I have for sure. Yeah, and of course, feeding them all in the corner. That was not the best idea. So the Discus, this is another too, as I sort of talked about in the summer with the fish room, the temperature does go up, so it's up a degree and a half, just because summertime in the fish basement, all the tanks run a little warmer, and they run a hair cooler in the winter time. Now not this tank, this one it'll at its coolest it'll be 78, but you can see right now it's running more like 80 and a half, so degrees Celsius. I'm sorry, Fahrenheit, 27.5 Celsius. Okay, so the next time we see this aquarium, I believe what we'll be looking for is some serious growth and girth of our Discus. The plants all growing in, much more. Like right now they're spreading everywhere, but I want to see some height in them. I want to see this, this jungle, this forest grow up a little bit. And then lastly, we'll just see if all the remaining hair algae gets burned off. And of course, it will be testing the water. And again, the eye test shows you most of it. You can tell by looking at the tank how well your balance is. But that's what we're going for here, is to get this aquarium back into balance, like it used to be before we changed everything. And we're doing the same thing with the Malawi River tank as well. Getting it back in balance, and then of course we're getting the 600 and the 750 in balance for the first time since those are brand new builds. All right, well that's a quick update on the double rebuilds. We made so many changes that it's almost like starting over again, so it's going to take a little time to get the ecosystem tanks back into equilibrium, but that's part of the fun. It is really fun when they're on cruise control and nature's doing 99% of the work for you. But also it's fun tweaking them and getting them there too. So both tanks are looking good, and a little bit more heavy lifting on the 600 and 750, as I am actually making a few more lighting changes. And like I said, the 3,000 gallon, there is a big video coming on that. I'm making a lot of changes, doing a lot of work over there. So I've kind of joked with some people online, it's almost going to be like a mini movie. Who knows what it'll be, but we'll see. Got to get to getting to an end point on it, so, to show the progress, and then I'll put it all together and see what we get. And I think the next thing I want to focus on is the 150 low-tech reef, getting everything there moved into the 600 reef slope and the 700 gallon sump and the 1500 gallon marine system, so that we can get that 150 gallon cube all repurposed freshwater, and then we got a whole new build coming with that. And we're gonna have a whole new setup essentially in the reslope because we're moving in so much rock and so much fish. I think it's gonna make that tank pop as well. So a lot going on as always, and I appreciate you watching, and I'll see y'all soon.